Welcome back to episode 3 of Dan Diving into the Big Book. Today we're going to talk about how there is hope, and this is a copy of Dan's book that just came out. Dan, tell us a brief bit about it.
Yeah, it's called Clearing Spiritual Cholesterol. And actually, it really ties into where we're going in the big book because clearing spiritual cholesterol is done through the ninth steps of AA, a 12-step program. Um, so it's all about getting rid of the blocks so that we can have that spiritual awakening that we need to recover.
Absolutely. If you guys are looking to do that, this is unbelievable. I was blessed to be a part of making it. All the information you could ever want is in this, and it gives you an opportunity to also have a separate journal so you can write about all the things you learn about. So, Dan, if let's dive into what we got going today.
Well, today we're going to talk about There Is a Solution, Chapter 2. I mean, we've gone over the doctor's opinion and Bill's story. Now we're getting into really very similar to the second step, meaning that there is hope. There is a solution for us because, after the what we've heard already, you kind of come in here and you feel hopeless. I have this disease that they call alcoholism, and I'm doomed unless something happens. But here we're going to start going through in the next couple of chapters to find what it really is about finding that solution. So, and they even talk about it early on in the chapter. Nearly all who have recovered, they have solved the drink problem. So it's so important. So, and the tremendous fact for us is that we have discovered a common solution, and that's the great news that this book carries. So it's so important that we do that because we feel that the elimination of a drinking problem is just the beginning. We're going to want to get rid of all of the things that I outlined in my book, Spiritual Cholesterol, so that we will know a new freedom. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Now, Dan, could I ask you a quick question? How could your book help contribute in conjunction with the big book if someone wanted to learn and grow? How do they go hand in hand?
Well, and it's not just, for alcoholics, it's for any person that has any type of spiritual malady or anything where they're feeling, they're just disconnected, some spiritual negativity and so forth, um, guilt, shame, remorse, and everything. So, and that's the real purpose of the big book is to guide you through a process to get rid of those things in order to awaken to the spirit. And so I wrote this book because I felt it's a little more, and I'm not knocking the 12 steps and what the big book has because I think it's tremendous. But I wanted to put something that I felt was a little bit more 21st century that you could really follow along. And we give you a lot of clear cut ways to rid yourselves, to get through the forgiveness, the guilt, the shame, and utilizing prayers and the steps, and big on the 11th step. So it works hand in hand with the big book, no question about it. So, so back to this chapter. What do I have to do in order to awaken besides buy my book? So, the purpose of this book is to answer such questions specifically. So we're going to go through them uh, on a basis. So, but this particular chapter is really going to outline the fact that and reaffirm that we have an allergy to alcohol once we ingest it, uh, and that we have a mental obsession that keeps us going to that point. So, and they go over a couple of stories of people who basically have had the situation explained to them that they have an allergy to alcohol or they can't pick up the first drink. And they think that okay, now that I know that, that's okay. I won't do it. Well, but history has shown that most people eventually, just knowing that is not enough. We need to have some sort of psychic change, as they like to call it, and that's what we're doing. And in this chapter, that psychic change is not happening. We're just becoming open-minded to the fact that we need to find it.
And would you say that psychic change would come from, as your book shows, hearing God's inner voice?
Absolutely, because the whole purpose is uh, we're not hearing God's inner voice when we're stuck. And that's what we need to do. Because let's be honest, I'm a firm believer in that the kingdom of God is within you. Okay. So if you awaken to that kingdom, do you think a God would want you to be abusing yourself with drugs and alcohol and all the other things that you could possibly doing? Absolutely not. So that when you start thinking from a God-centered uh, perspective, you're not going to want to do those things anymore. And that's when the change occurs. and they're going to talk about that because um, our friend never took the first drink. Therefore, the main problem of alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. He wouldn't have a problem if he didn't take the first drink, but unless he has that psychic change, he's probably going to do that. So, and they go on to say there is a solution. Almost none of us like the self searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for a successful consummation. So, we have found much of heaven and we've been rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence of which we have not even dreamed. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator had entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. And the truth of the matter is, he's always been in you, but you've been blocked from him. And once you do these things that can clear it away, you open up the channel for God to work through you. And one of the things you must do when you get that gift is you need to pass that message on to others so that they, in fact, can hear the message. And that's what we try to do here all the time.
And those last 30 seconds sums up Dan's point about clearing spiritual cholesterol. That is the overall understanding of what that is.
Absolutely. And as this chapter goes on to tell us that, there was a guy named Roland Hazard who had met Carl Jung, and he had learned everything about his mind, about what he needed to do. But the sheer fact of just knowing that was not good enough. When he came back, thinking that he knew everything, within a couple of weeks, he was drunk again. So, and then he actually asked Carl Jung, "Is there anything I can do?" Uh, and he basically was told there is no exception, that you are hopeless. And then he asked him again, really? He said, well, there are some exceptions. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics and other people who are struggling have had what is called as a vital spiritual experience. To me, these occurrences are phenomena. They appear to be the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements, ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast aside and a completely new conception and motives begin to dominate. In fact, I've been trying to produce such emotional rearrangements within you, with many individuals. The methods which I employed are successful, but I've never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. And then he goes on to say, but I have heard about it happening through people that are going through this recovery process. So it's a design for living. Uh, we have no, and I have no desire to convince anybody that there's only one way by which faith can be acquired. But I am a firm believer that there is a God within every one of us. Okay, and that if you, how do you know if somebody is awakening to God? You know them by the fruits of their actions. Meaning,
Amen.
are they treating people with love and kindness? Are they not being dishonest? Are they not blocked with all that spiritual cholesterol, being greedy,
Hmm.
dishonest, self-centered, and dishonest? That's what we're trying to do away with.
So then let me ask you a quick question then, Dan. So if someone, let's say, is having an issue with alcoholism, but then they feel inside, oh, I'm still good to people and it's not so bad. When we talk about the meter, right? Do we feel that we then know it's an issue once we then are not being as honest, not being as truthful with everybody? As that meter starts to wane, right? How important it is to be accountable for that.
Absolutely. And let's just be really honest. If you are drinking and causing destruction in your life,
Mhm.
hurting your family, hurting your children, can you honestly say you're being honest?
I don't think so.
No.
Absolutely
So
not.
what happens is sometimes this is on a subconscious level that you're doing things, the little things. So when you become awakened, you no longer will want to be dishonest. You'll know. Now, it doesn't mean you won't ever have moments of it. That's why we have a 10 step, but we're ahead of ourselves right now. And eventually we know that we have to constantly stay on top of our inventory. So um, we're going to eventually get clear cut directions showing us how we recovered, as well as the book has. I have it in my book. So um, The key to this chapter is there is a solution. Be hopeful, be open minded, be willing to do what we're going to talk about as we go forward. And that's where we are. We're all hopeful.
Amen, Dan. And let's finish with one last quick thing. Someone who's in the bottom right now, like you were, they're feeling it awful. They don't know like there's a way out. What would be a quick message you would say to them, talking right to the camera, that
Well,
they
the
could
quick
feel?
message I would say to you is I know what you feel like. I was in a homeless shelter and I felt lost, really lost. And I heard a guy up there say, I bet you feel like a loser. And I did. He said, you're not a loser. You're just losing today. If you put together a program and get in the way of clearing yourself out, you too can awaken and become a better person. I believe that's then it put me on a trajectory where I have done all the work. And it's been 38 years since I've had a drink or a drug. And I try to be a good, honest, caring, loving person on a daily basis.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dan. Once again, as we leave you with that note, Dan's book is live on Amazon right now. We will have a link to it in the description. We'll be back for episode 4 very soon. Thank you, Dan.
Have a great day.